Well, hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Ascension Playground. This is your friend Ursi, and it's August 2023 now. And boy, has the energy really taken another like evolutionary spiral up. And so, with the Lion's Gate coming, it's a Stargate portal every year on August 8th. The numerics of 8, 8, and you turn an 8 on its side and you have this infinity symbol. So imagine two infinity symbols holding space for the collective as together we work towards self-awareness, collective ascension, and support of Mother Earth. So today I wanted to just launch and share some joy with you. I find the most fascinating people are tarot card readers. There's so many great ones in the family, including Nancy Jean, Danny Shea, and Andrea. So I wanted to find out a little bit more for myself. What is it about these archetypal energies of the tarot, and how will they help inform me personally and collectively? So to my delight, I've signed up for a September workshop at Esalen Institute with a masterful teacher named Brenda Rose. And so to get ready for class, as every good double Virgo does, I started looking at tarot, and behind me is my little mandala of the 22 major arcana. I didn't create this idea of doing a wheel by myself. Instead, I was on Gaia TV and I looked up Dr. Theresa Bullard, and she has some wonderful mystery teachings and has a whole segment on the major arcana of the tarot. Okay, so this is how it rocks and rolls in this new Aquarian energy. We have the delight of our heart, we send out a message, and then we wait with great anticipation for the surprise. Well, surprise, your friend Ursi is here to now share with you what she's learning with the tarot, the major arcana. All right, so here goes. The surprise for me was looking at this idea that Dr. Bullard presented on Gaia TV that you know, it really has a deeper meaning when you don't look at the cards as, let's say, let's go figure out what's going to happen for the future, or what are the cards saying about this political event or this natural disaster. So instead of using it as a way to predict and understand what's next, Dr. Bullard actually took my breath away when she said, when you work with the major arcana, the 22, there's a system in place that dovetails with Hermetic principles, the mystery school of the Golden Dawn, and you bring in, yes, the astrology and ancient tarot, and you bring this together, and guess what? There's a galactic component to this. So when I heard that part, as far as galactic consciousness and beingness, it dovetailed with so much of what I'm fascinated by with the work of Julia Balaz and the galacticastrochart.com, her beautiful free calculator. So I thought, let's play and see, how do the energies of connection happen? If you're a Virgo, if you have strong Virgo in your chart, you will understand then that Virgo loves to look at all the data and then synthesize and bring forward, sifting out, this doesn't is not appropriate for me right now. This can be recycled. This we can put on a shelf. And this is the gold. So my husband, Mike, he likes to call me the great shish kebabber, because I like to take these disparate parts and find a way to shish kebab and bring everything together to have, in my view, like maybe even a cohesive statement, or maybe even building a statement into a paragraph. But as a visual artist, working with archetypal energies is profound. And the more we know ourselves through self awareness, self inquiry, oftentimes the further in we go, the further we move into this world of archetype and universal metaphor. So the more personal, the more oftentimes connected we are with the rhythms of a broader pattern that's happening. So without further ado, let me go ahead. I've prepared a little slideshow to share with you about the tarot. So I'm hoping I'll share this broad overview and then move into a little more specifics on each and individual of the meanings of the 22 tarot cards, just so I can get it more at my working knowledge and conversation. So Gaia TV, if you haven't heard about it and you're listening to this message, consider taking a look. I think there's a 30-day free subscription to Gaia TV if you Google it, GAIA TV. It's the watering hole for all things metaphysical, woo-woo, and then some. So if you look up Dr. Theresa Bullard, modern mystery school teacher, this particular one is around the mystery teachings of the tarot. I know some people say tarot, tarot. It's the same meaning. Anyway, here she is, an incredible being who can take a lot of, let's see, hermetic wisdom and synthesize it too with what does it mean in a practical way. So if you tuned into this and you just want me to repeat what you already know about tarot cards, that might come later. This is like a broad umbrella around there's something else at play here. There's something that's been hidden in plain sight that just now that the collective is ready, let's see if we want to play this game. Does it make sense to you or not? Does it resonate with you or not? Okay, so there is Dr. Bullard. And I wanted to show this picture. What you can see is you have a human being at the center. This is about the idea of what is it to be multidimensional? I personally have a hard time wrapping my mind around it. You know, in the third and fourth dimension, we're on linear time. When you start talking about multidimensionality, you start engaging with words like parallel lives. It's not so much about past lives, future lives. It's about this idea of multidimensionality off the linear timeline into quantum space. Okay, so this image is just holding this idea that we are much more than what we know. And for any artist listening or art historian, you know that over 100 years ago, when the famous artist Paul Gauguin thought he was dying and wanted to paint his last masterpiece, he poured all of his energy into this great work, and it is called Where Do We Come From? What are we? And where are we going? It is the quintessential questions around when you know where you're from, then you know where you are, which will help you navigate to where you're going. So before he thought he was going to die, he didn't, he died later. But this idea of his second question of what are we? It's not who are we or who am I? It's not the who, it's the what. And so for me, it opened that window of multidimensional beingness. All right, so we can talk about galactic consciousness and universality, but multidimensionality, that's one of the questions that's going to come up if we start looking and probing into these 22 major arcana. Again, not as necessarily a tell us about what's going to happen in the future, but is there another layer to this that's been hidden in plain sight of the tarot? So if you listen to Dr. Bullard, she'll tell you, go ahead and look at the Universal Waite tarot deck. All right. There's a lot of tarot decks out there, or tarot decks. And if you're new to tarot, you're going to have the onslaught of there's so many. The one that she's talking about on Gaia TV is what's called the Universal Waite deck. Okay. And it's a little bit different. So I wanted to show you a picture if you're into checking out and purchasing a particular deck. This is the foundational imagery to be used. You can use other tarot decks, of course, but this one, I figured I'd start here with her and understand. Tell me the foundational pillars of these 22 before we start, adding various other illustrations. I want to know the metaphors with each one. Okay. So if you want to get on the same page with me, look for the Universal Waite deck. All right. Here's one layer that Dr. Bullard brings in, the Tree of Life with the Kabbalah. And excuse me if I'm not saying that right, if it's Kabbalah or Kabbalah. But I love this image that I found on Google because what it does is it brings that beautiful flower of life, this ancient flower of life, sacred geometry that was found inscribed remarkably in Abydos, Egypt, in the Osirian divine temple. So, my goodness, this has to do, I believe, with regeneration and reminding us of the fractalization of our core essence. So, this artist put the tree of life. You can see the beautiful, colorful dots called Sephirot or Sephirot. So, again, this languaging is relatively new for me to speak, though I've read about it quite a bit in earlier days. So here's the idea that Theresa brings forward. That is, there are 22 pathways. So you have these spheres, right? The Sephirot, and there are 9 of them. And I know for you advanced people, there's a 10th one, and maybe even a 12th and 13th Sephirot. But for this discussion, we'll just go with the 9 spheres. And connecting the spheres are pathways. There's 22 of them. And so some have said the major arcana in the tarot deck relates to these pathways for this idea of awakening. It's the hero's journey. You remember Carl Jung, the hero's journey, leaving home to go have that adventure only to return back, but not as the same being, but that evolutionary spiralic higher level, higher octave when you do return home. Then, of course, I wanted to share these other images that I found. You start really feeling the alchemical wisdom when you bring in the wings, right? The Kundalini serpents of the caduceus. You start looking at this tree of life, but now we're bringing in the tarot cards with those 22 pathways. Theresa says that these are 22 keys. In fact, for you who love tarot, the history on it is they're looking at this as possibly starting in the time of Egypt, ancient Egypt, the time of Ra, in fact. So, this idea that the 22 universal archetypes have a layer on this Kabbalah tree of life, and each of the 22 major arcanum, right? The major arcanum means basically big secret. Arcanum is mystery as well, secret or mystery. So, what is hidden has a universal quality to it. So, I just love it. You can Google images of the Tree of Life, Kabbalah, and tarot. I'm going back to this image of we are much more than what we think ourselves to be. Some of you have heard me talk about my time in Mount Shasta, California, studying with the Stargate Experience and the Stargate Academy with Pragit and Julian. Now, they have gone global with their teachings. The whole thrust of the Stargate Experience is to engage us in the third dimension here in this earthly being with our super consciousness. You know, super consciousness is another interesting word. It's like multidimensionality, so this idea that when we engage with what's beyond our 5 senses, there's so much more to access. And you might ask, well, why is that important? Well, it is if you want to engage with the whole ascension process. And welcome to the Ascension Playground. So, playing with this idea that we're in this new photonic light belt, we're shifting our beingness from carbon based to light bodies. So, if this is at all ringing bells or activations within you, then let me continue. So, here we go, super consciousness. This idea of the dandelion, the fractalization of each of those seeds spreading out. Imagine 22 of you, of you in parallel lives, is what Theresa is talking about. And each of those lives, you could say, is associated with one of the 22 pathways on the tree of life. So stick with me. There's a very interesting thought to this. So here we go back to the tree of life, and you can start seeing this person in Google images. Said, here's the pathway of the fool at the top. Here's the pathway of the high priestess, the high priest, the emperor, the hermit, etc. You can find this by just Googling the idea of tree of life and 22 major arcana tarot. So this idea that, wow, I'm going to pause for a minute. When I was up in Mount Shasta, and Alcazar is the channel that brought through this technology and is sharing wisdom like Cryon does through Lee Carroll. So, in fact, the Summer of Light conferences in various locations in the United States brings together two channels. Um, so, this idea that Arcturian energy through Lee Carroll and Cryon, and then through the Stargate, bringing through another channel that's saying, there is much more to you than you know. So if this idea that we have, let's say, we'll just say 22 aspects of our true selves. So when I say true selves, I might also be saying the word higher selves, but I'm learning that there's a higher self connected to me here on earth. And then I believe that there are other higher selves of me on various other systems and universes. I know that's going a little galactic quickly, but that's how this is rocking and rolling for today. Got to bring forward this image of the astrology, right? So, this is an old image of how the astrological signs are correlated to our body. It's this embodiment of the soul reincarnating and taking on various lifetimes as, oh, Ursula's a double Virgo with the Pisces moon. Here's the wardrobe, here's the stage set, here's how she's going to present and learn and expand in this third dimensional lifetime. But wouldn't it be interesting to track and find out through the Western astrology, through the Vedic astrology, and now through the galactic astrology, that we are much more than just one being? Okay. So here's where I'm sharing an image of, yes, the zodiacal wheel, the 12 zodiac signs. What are you? And there's that word, what are you? You're more than just a sun sign, a moon sign, and an ascendant. Julia's work at galacticastrochart.com brings in the metaphor of the stars into your energy field, reminding you of potential lifetimes, past, present, and future. Okay, so that is galactic consciousness with a free calculator. So here's a picture of, it's you. It's all been you. The one that you were afraid of. You're talking about, let's say, abductions or bad dreams or memories of disasters. If for a moment you could hold the thought that that's all you, it's all you, however you want to imagine you, but it's you on a super conscious level, on a multidimensional level. So when you listen, if you choose to Theresa Bullard, she's talking about parallel lives. And so this idea that with those 22 major arcana, it's allowing ourselves to have 22 parallel lives happening, right? Why is that? What benefit would that be? And that sacred number 22, That is the number of the master builder. So, what are we building, right? By having these 22, let's say, lives, archetypal lives. So, are you saying then, Dr. Bullard, that in this lifetime, I can go look up my birth date? Yes, I might, September 13th is associated with the emperor. Okay, so sitting with that as this lifetime. What are my other 21 lifetimes? Yes, I'll be the fool. Yes, I'll be the devil. Yes, I'll be all of these major arcana energies in various lifetimes. But it gets even more interesting when she actually states, and it's not all on this planet, so there's other star systems. In fact, oh, here we go. I wanted to bring in this beautiful wheel of the I Ching to bring this idea of our multidimensionality. We are way more than we can imagine. And what's happening in the collective consciousness is you're going to be hearing more people like myself talking about what are the potentials of you embracing all that you are, and then finding out it's not just me, it's all me. There isn't the separation when we get beyond the worlds of duality, which are really strongly held in the third and fourth dimensions. This is why they say that Earth is moving into the fifth dimension with new Earth. It's off the timeline. So the rebirth of the new Earth is going into much more of a quantum space. All right. And if you listen to Dr. Bullard, she's going to say, here next to my head is Earth. Okay, so let's say you're having this one Earth lifetime, even though you probably are having a few parallel here on Earth as well. And then there's the sun. Let's say you have a lifetime in Alcyone and Sirius. All of this through what she has studied with the Hermetic wisdom and the great dawn, the golden dawn, right? um, that this is all moving us home. And for her, she calls out home as the great central sun, the great central sun. If you do yoga, sometimes we do those poses and movements and we engage through our hara to the great central sun. So imagine this line, this silver line, an umbilical cord, let's say, from our hara, which is near our belly button, and all of our lifetimes are then connected, all of them, not just earthly ones, right? All connected, all going back to this great central sun. And had to put in that beautiful sacred geometry, which, if geometry is new to you, I invite you to go ahead and just tune in to that particular geometry. In fact, it's no accident. I went and my teacher, Randy Masters, created this beautiful um, jewel. It's a pendant that I wear to remind me of going home. So, the great central sun. Just kind of nice to know where we're talking about. And so I took a picture of laying out the 22 major arcana with the Fool at the top. Okay. So the next level that Theresa Bullard talks about beyond parallel lives is this idea of there is a certain sequence to the movement of the hero's journey through the mandala, through the wheel. So we start with the Fool, we go around the circle, let's see, counterclockwise, and then we end at the top with the world. So it's interesting how the Fool and the world meet each other. Um, and you may know that the Fool is the zero, the number zero. All begins anew with zero, new beginnings. It's going to be fun to look at each of the 22 cards. Again, I'm giving a shout out to the Universal Waite Tarot deck. And so just for a little bit of background on the Waite deck, let's see, here's my little notes. Yes, there were two initiates of the Golden Dawn around 1907. One was named Arthur Edward Waite, and he tapped on the shoulder of Pamela Smith, who did the artistry. Now, this is not just any type of art randomly done. Each color, each symbol, each motif in the cards carries sacred and layered meanings. So it's going to be fun because the universe oftentimes speaks to us through symbols, numbers, colors, and frequency. So it's just going to be great. So I wanted to share that with you and then end here by just saying, if this sounds like fun to you, go ahead and check out Gaia TV, the modern mystery school with Dr. Theresa Bullard. I mean, it just goes deeper and deeper. And she was saying, here's another note, that about 100 years ago, there was a gentleman named, I'm going to get this wrong, Eliphas Levi, who was a French initiate. He's the one that brought forward this old wisdom, the sacred arcana that had been hidden. Again, the tale on this goes back to the teachings of Ra in ancient Egypt, and this idea that when you look at the gods and goddesses during that time of Ra, Teresa even makes a jump to each of those animals is one of the 22 major arcanum pathways. These are keys. Let's see, here we go. Let me stop sharing for a minute. And so this is going to be my little mandala, my little halo to share with you, and a little series, a mini series. It's not about tarot. It is about you and me and this idea of super consciousness and multidimensionality. These are just the stories that help remind us, wow, things are much, much more than what we see or what appears to be the common knowledge. It's time now for us to consider, where did we come from? What are we? To help us understand, where are we going? Thank you so much for joining me on the Ascension Playground. I'll be back shortly. See you soon. Bye-bye.